Welcome back to Living with a Classic. I'm here with this XJ Coupe, and in the previous video I did the impossible. Basically fixed some broken threads all the way down in the block because one of the studs pulled the threads up, or the head studs. That's all fixed now, and the head is torqued down, and now it's time to see if we can get it running. I've done a couple things off camera, I'll show you that, but still need to put the intake on, set up the carbs, have a look at the ignition system, plumb a couple things in. But I've done a couple of jobs off camera just to, make it a little bit more manageable for one video. But hopefully by the end of this video, it'll fire up and it will run and possibly even move under its own power. On this side, I have the exhaust on. The owner is a really good fabricator and welder. So he's made this himself, and I think that looks really cool. It's probably going to sound great. So that's all on. Camshafts are hooked up. The oil feed lines in the back. Adjust to the timing chain. Cam covers. On the other side, I've put in the frost plug that we had out, or the core plug, starters back on. And I've put in all the studs on the other side for the intake. Intake's on the bench and all cleaned up. So I think that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to install that. Engine is still at TDC, so we can have a look at the distributor cap. If there is a distributor drive that goes into the oil pump, they can really only go two ways. And if someone's put it in backwards, if the engine's been apart at some point, that can happen. The rotor will be pointing 180 degrees out, but that's not a big deal if we know about it now. Then we can do the firing order and all that. I have new plugs for it as well. But I'm going to get the intake on, fairly straightforward, and then we'll set up ignition, see if we have that. I have a battery on charge for it. I believe I put fuel in it because I tried to fire it up with the old engine. So there should be some fuel in it, and then we'll do a base setting of the carbs, base setting of timing, which should be good enough for it to fire up. Here comes the massive intake. See if we can get the bypass hose down here on. There we go. And then there's a new gasket on there, of course, and some goo as well. I like Highlander blue. You can use whatever you like, but I've had great success with it. So here you see, all in place. I have all these nuts here to secure it, some vacuum lines, and then we're going to look at the distributor and doing a basic setup of the carbs. Intake is on, and I have removed both dash pods. Always make sure that you remove them and set so that one goes there and that one goes there. They're not interchangeable. Down here, it's going to be difficult to show, but with a light, let me see. Can I get this set up somewhere? There we go. We, of course, have our jet down there where the tapered needle goes to. And I know that the owner has tried messing with some things, so we're going to just do a basic set. It actually doesn't look too bad. It looks a little bit on the rich side. But this screw here adjusts it, and that's the thing that whenever I make a video on tuning SU carbs, you always have someone who thinks they know better. Says, because I always say it's clockwise, you turn it in to make it richer, you turn it out to lean it out, and every other carb is backwards. So they always say, no, you mean the other way. No, I mean, when I say, look, that's richer and that's leaner. So we're going to set it up so it's level with the bridge there, basically. I think that's where we are now. And we'll see when it starts moving. There it starts moving. So half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5. Good base setup to go by. We're just looking for it to fire up. And that was pretty rich. So There we go. Half, 1, 1.5. The nice thing also is usually the screws are pointing in the right direction, so when it's all together, let's say it's really lean, I can initially just tune them both the same way. It's just to get it running. I like to check that the lifting pins work. They're nice to have. They work, and then we're gonna do a very similar thing for the throttle adjustments here. I have this part that goes to the throttle pedal is completely disconnected, and I will loosen one of these adjustments, doesn't really matter which one, slacken everything off, and then turn these down until they just start opening butterflies, and then go 1.5 turns on both of those as well. And then we have the initial setup on the carbs, and they can get reassembled. Then we're going to have a look at the ignition down there. That's all set up now, and that is good enough to fire it up. I'll put on the dash pots again. We'll connect up the fuel line, and then down to the distributor. Just have a quick look at that, do a static timing check. The engine is at TDC, so that should be pretty straightforward. I believe it is pointing 180 degrees out, but not that big of a deal. I have new spark plugs for it. New HT leads, I believe, are in the trunk. And we have the main vacuum line for the booster there, and a couple of small vacuum lines to plug in. What I'm doing now is 2 birds with 1 stone, basically. I'm going to verify the spark works. I checked to have 12 volts to the coil. There's a bunch of extra wires. I'll figure that out later. But I've removed most of it, and I just have a 12 volt feed to the coil. And then I have the red cable from the electronic distributor hooked up to the positive of the coil, and the negative should break it, as that would be the cable from the contact breakers. With the engine now set at 8 degrees before top dead center statically, we are pretty close to where we want to be. It'll fire up at least. And it turns anti-clockwise, so we'll go anti-clockwise first, and then I want to see spark jump at number 1 cylinder, which would be this spark plug. So we'll move until that. There we go. And then there, back and forth a couple times. Pretty much right there. So I'll lock down distributor right in that position, and then we know we are close enough to fire up. So what we're going to do now is just crank it over. There's no plugs in it. I want to see that it cranks over nicely. Also, clear through anything. I did put a little bit of ATF, just a tiny bit down each cylinder, just as some extra lubrication. And so moment of truth, seeing if it wants to crank over. I believe we have everything connected. Let's see if it cranks on the starter. And it does. We don't have a functioning oil light or oil pressure gauge, but that does actually crank over pretty nicely. I'll put the plugs in, do the last of the plug wires. Then we need to have a look at the fuel system, because the pump hasn't turned on yet. So see if we can figure that out. After some gentle prodding and tapping, I managed to get this pump working, and it feels like it's built fuel pressure. It's holding pressure now, at least. Let's go up and check for leaks. AD is a little bit wet, but the rest seems pretty fine. I think what we're going to do, just to not flood it out, is I'm going to disconnect that fuel pump when we fire it up, and then we won't have any flooding. We might need to have a look at the AD. We'll give it just a couple of little love taps. Everything has been off and apart. Intake leg on the side. And there the pump stopped. So I think that was it. All right, I think we've done everything. We don't have any real coolant in it. There's a little bit left in it from before, but I just really want to have proof of concept. If it fires up, if it does, then we can put coolant in it and go from there. Let us see. There are some issues with that gauge. That's fine. Throttle pedal seems to work. Here we go. Let's go check if, for those of you who are familiar, the AED could just be dumping fuel into the whole thing. It does smell a bit fuely. Not seeing anything overflow or leak too badly though. I never did check the settings on the AED, but yeah, we'll continue our little cranking here, see if we can get it to fire up. I verified Spark again, and I have used these. These are just spark plugs in some plugs. I always carry these in my XJ6 daily driver, even though my AED works well. But if your AED ever messes up, you can block it like this. But it's not something I like, but I'm going to grab a little bit of starter fluid. I have taken the plugs out and cleaned them off. They're a little bit oil fouled, just because I had some oil in the cylinders to lubricate everything. I just want to see if I have any life out of it all, if timing's 180 off or anything. So if I spray some of this in each of the throats here, we should be able to hear if it wants to bark off. Oh yeah, let's try again. All right, we have a runner. Definite fuel issue. Either we're not getting fuel up to the carbs, or something else is going on. So I'm going to investigate that. Possibly actually that we try hooking up the AED, seeing if it wants to run on that. Yeah, let's do that. But hey, it wants to fire up. So timing's set pretty good. It sounded good. There was no knocking or anything. Should we spritz it? All right, usually don't like, we're not going to use some more starting fluid. We're going to try and figure this out. If there's something wrong with the fuel. Okay, we do have an overflowing issue here now. Massively overflowing issue on this carb. So yeah, some things to figure out. Let's smell what the fuel's like. It smells pretty fresh. Figure out, I think we're actually not getting fuel up to the carbs, but we verified that we do have, you know, it does want to run at least. Okay, I removed the top of the flow chamber here, and yeah, we don't really have the cleanest amount of fuel, but at least we have fuel in here, so no needle and see all that works. But how it works on these SUs is then there's basically a hose, you see that metal line there, that goes to the jet. And I'm wondering if that's plugged. So this is a can of just, you know, lubricant. So I thought would use the compressor and blow. I wonder if we were plugged, because the first time it shot up here. That works now, and that comes up there. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll try again. All right, I tried that, made no difference. It runs on starting fluid, nothing else. I believe the AED is at fault, so eagle eye viewers might notice this one's different. This is actually one off my daily. I just pulled it in really quickly. I know it works. It starts every day. And when they're cold, SUs really need some sort of nourishment device. And basically when these are cold, they run off this carb. So I've hooked everything up. I've just checked for fuel leaks. Let's crank it over and see if we actually have a running engine. Oh, wow! It runs! Not that long, but it does. Let's see. Oh, now that's a success. Not running perfectly, but for the first time in a long time, this car is actually running. Well, it's smoky. I have to wait for smoke to clear. And that's why I think we're not going to do any more start attempts today. We know it runs. Now it needs some coolant in it, but in total, it's maybe had 1.5 minutes run time over an hour. So everything is still really cool on the block. But it revved up nicely. The AED I have here, it's set a little bit too lean for this engine, it seems. That's why it fires up first, because there's a needle drop that gives more enrichment during cranking. It's basically like an accelerator pump. And so that's why it fires up right away and then dies. But I'm not going to mess with my AED because it's set up for my car. But now we know that works, and I can have a look at his AED, have a look at my things. I think there's a vacuum leak with that massive, or something isn't right because the idle is way off. But it runs, it seems nice. I also don't want to run it anymore, of course, without the water. I don't want to run it without functioning gauges. So I think I'll try and get gauges and things working, and then we'll roll it outside and then actually fire it up outside. So, because everything needs to smoke off. It's just, it's pretty bad. I don't want to do that in the workshop, but that will be another day. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Till next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.